The leadership of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, yesterday said unequivocally that its presidential ticket was open to all the 6 geopolitical zones of the country. The party stated this position when it received a letter from a group, Northern Advocate for Good Governance, NAFGG, which advocated a presidential candidate of Northern Nigerian origin in the 2023 presidential election. It was the first time the main opposition party would be stating its position on the presidency clearly ahead of the next general election. Unmoved by loud agitation for a presidential candidate from the southern part of Nigeria, PDP maintained that no zone would be denied the opportunity of contesting in the election. Meanwhile, Ohanaeze Ndigbo Worldwide has set up a political action committee to work towards the actualization of a Nigerian president of Igbo extraction in 2023. The socio-political group says Igbos are prepared and deserve the presidency, while describing it as politically defensible and morally justifiable. At a press conference, President General of Ohanaeze Ndigbo Worldwide, Professor George Obiozor, said Nigeria has consistently failed to address what he called the 2 devils, in quotes, of the nation's politics, which is power sharing and social injustice. Obiozor said such a failure has set Nigeria on a synchronized national crisis, which will be more difficult to be controlled or contained.
How did we get to the Civil War, 67-70? How did we get to Nadeko, Abiola crisis? And even the South-South Avengers? The truth. The situation in the country today is not totally different from what it was in the past, but it is even more complicated. Today, indeed, the way things are, with communication which people have in their hands and modern technology, our country is set not only at the usual breaking points, which were more easily controlled in the past and contained to preserve Nigerian unity, but a point of synchronized national crisis, which no nation, no empire can survive. As the national situation today is, it will require pan-Nigerians like Ndigbo to revigorate, to regenerate the nation's path.
While Ohanaeze Ndigbo there, not going down without a fight, and that argument that is often made about the Southeast, or they don't consult, or they don't reach out across the country, nobody's coming forward, can certainly not be made for the 2023 elections. We can see quite clearly that it's quite the opposite this time around. That's if that argument ever flew in the first case. As for PDP, my goodness, talk about missing the zeitgeist. The fact of the matter is that shifting public narrative must always be reflected by those who are interested in public service. An example, not a digression, mind you, is Joe Biden wanting to nominate a black woman for the Supreme Court of the United States, just responding to the zeitgeist. It's what you do. And I think PDP might be really shooting themselves in the foot here. If you actually want to serve people, you must show that your finger is on the pulse. You must show that you understand the pressing issues of the day. I think the strategy here in trying to throw open the race, and you would know because, well, you know, I think the strategy must be that they're thinking that APC's performance has not been up to par, and people will know that and then come to PDP. But that is a huge gamble, because as far as a lot of people are concerned, they're fine with APC's performance. Some other people are also more concerned with the fundamental issues of this country, of the perception of northern dominance, the perception of injustice in this country. It was the pigs in George Orwell's Animal Farm that patronizingly said all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others, referring to themselves. We, the pigs, are your rulers. rulers. And that's how it seems here. And also, I think this is a vindication for David Umahi when he left PDP and decamped to APC, saying that the Southwest has been so loyal to the PDP from inception and has not been properly rewarded. Well, it looks like that now. But I'm curious to see what happens with the Southern governors, because obviously we all know what happened with the communiques from the Southern governors meeting that the presidency should come to the South. Some of those Southern governors are PDP governors. I believe about 7 of them are from PDP. So are those voices going to be ignored? Are there going to be consultations? Are they going to be persuaded in any way? It's all very interesting as it plays out.
Okay, my only concern about what you said is about David Umahi. Don't let us deceive ourselves that David Umahi is fighting for anybody. He's fighting for himself.
But he made that point.
So yeah, that point must be established that it's, in his own case, so his own selfish interest, not necessarily a pan-Igbo ambition leading him to leave the party. But let us put it like this. In other countries, when it is a moment for election, do they discuss zoning? No, they don't. Now, we're fixed, we're fixated on this issue of zoning because Nigeria is multicultural, it's a pluralistic society, it's a diverse society. As Okudiba Nnoli and Onigo Otite, both professors, have pointed out, we have over 400 ethnic nationalities in this country. Some of these ethnic nationalities have existed since primordial times. And they all say that, look, in this union called Nigeria, it may have been a contraption put together by the British colonialists, but every individual within this space should have a part to play. But down the line, we came up with this idea of federal character, of zoning, right? Federal character is constitutional. Zoning is a derivative of it, adopted by the political parties. And that is what is playing out here now. In the US, in the UK, you don't hear that you have to come from this zone or come to that zone before you can be president or prime minister. So part of the challenge that we face is, the peculiarity of the Nigerian situation and the fact that our society is not yet inclusive. So nobody should be surprised that there are people who are saying zoning is very important so that everybody can have a sense of inclusion, so that everyone can have a sense of ownership of the Nigerian project. That is where the problem is. 2, the problem that we're dealing with is not just in the PDP, it's also in the APC, the 2 dominant political parties. All that argument within the APC is it not just about zoning? And some people in this country are saying that no, you cannot insist that some parts of the country are born to rule and that they must be dominant in all situations. The 3rd point that I would like to draw attention to, now coming back to the PDP. Now, 1, zoning is not a constitutional principle. It does not say candidates must come from this part, even if the Constitution talks about federal character in Chapter 2, Section 14-15 thereof. But the PDP adopted the zoning principle as a convention. It was a big issue in the People's Democratic Party in 2011, if you recall, when President Umaru Yar'Adua of blessed memory, when he died, and it was to be succeeded in line with constitutional provisions by President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, who at the time was his vice president. Look at the whole of that dust that was kicked up by the northern part of the country on the grounds that a southerner could not use the term or complete the term of a northerner. And then the National Assembly came up with a doctrine of necessity, which was not necessary in any case, because the Constitution was very clear on that particular matter. Even if it was, the Constitution does not say anything categorical about zoning. In 2015, the conspiracy again against President Goodluck Jonathan was that, look, power now must come to the North. And the North ganged up together and decided that, look, power must come to the North. And President Jonathan, the Southerner, played the statesman and said, look, his ambition was not worth the blood of everybody. Now, in the approach to 2023, the same People's Democratic Party that had always adopted zoning as convention, as custom, is now trying to turn around through the Northern Group for Good Governance. Some of these groups are just fictitious entities, to now say, no, it's a level playing field. Anybody can be president. And Southerners have spent more time since 1999 as president of Nigeria, Obasanjo plus Jonathan, and that now it will be wrong to say that 8 years of President Buhari excludes the North. It's a very specious argument. And I'm hoping that at the end of the day, reason will prevail. That in both the APC and the PDP, the two dominant political parties, the leaders of the party will sit down and then look at it more critically and try to build a consensus. The PDP has a very strong opportunity, to challenge the APC. But the PDP again runs the risk that it ran in 2015 of being sabotaged by its own internal politics. And that will be to the advantage, if they do not manage it very well, it will be to the advantage of the APC. However, if reason prevails at the end of the day, then, of course, maybe the leaders of the party will say, okay, let us zone it to the south in order to keep the party strong, keep the party together. If that happens, we will now face another level. And all this has to do with the fractious politics that will play in Nigeria. We will go to another level whereby you will now have to determine where will the president come from in the south.
Microzoning.
Yes. Will it be south-south? Will it be southeast? Will it be southwest? So in the various political parties, you still have all of this, playing out. And the Igbos are saying, and you could hear Professor Obiozor referring to the Civil War. There are many Igbos who are of the firm opinion that the Civil War has not yet ended in Nigeria, and that other ethnic nationalities, out of the 400 plus in Nigeria, as defined by Onigo Chiche, are still fighting Igbos. And I've seen a statement by Mao Habonwa, the founder of the New Nigeria Group. We have seen the statement by Ohaneze Indigbo. So, for how long are we going to continue to alienate people? And then, of course, the Southwest. You have certain forces, certain elements, certain stakeholders in the Southwest belonging to the All Progressives Congress, the other dominant party, the ruling party, saying that, look, there was an agreement within the APC that once President Buhari finishes his term, the thing will come to the Southwest. Some of them even feel that they are the anointed next president of Nigeria. So what we're dealing with, the contradictions in Nigeria, our inability, more than 60 years after independence, to build a nation. I always refer to that famous lecture by Professor Wole Soyinka. When is a nation? At what point are we going to get to in this country that you and I will have a sense of ownership and not feel that some people have better advantages to others, either at the level of class or gender or ideology or the privileges that they have access to? This is the heart of the Nigerian national question, and I hope that there will be an elite class and a followership class that can deal with this. The President was talking when he met with the 2022 committee about elite consensus. Well, what is called elite consensus can be used for evil. It can also be used for good. For too long in this country, elite consensus has been used for evil. At what point will the elite class become, more enlightened? That's the challenge that we face, in my view.
Certainly is. Well, that's all on the news headlines. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Rota Sadiri, Michael Wilson, Adeswa Amoran, and Aaron Akirojala to give us updates on Africa and global business, COVID-19, and sporting activities across the globe. Stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Our dependable Rota Sadiri is here to give us an African business update. Morning, Rota.
Good morning, Tundu. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning to all our viewers. The oil and gas space has been an unfortunate incident that's taken place in the offshore Western Niger Delta region, an explosion involving a vessel, an FPSO, floating production storage offtake, as what is called. 50-year-old vessel called the Trinity Spirit. Apparently, this happened about 3 days ago. Large explosion. You can see the video footage there. This is in the Upokiti oil field, OML 108. Apparently, it's been linked to the Sheba Exploration and Production Company Limited, which is founded by Dr. ABC Ojako. Remember, that's one of the half of the acronyms that formed CEPLAT along with platform. So, you know, as of right now, there hasn't been any response from the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission yet. We're still, hopefully, there's no casualties, but we don't know. We don't have any information yet. It's something we're still monitoring. But I mean, as you can see, it's a pretty, you know, if you think about what's, you know, the production capacity, what these FPSOs, you know, provide as far as, although this is, I understand this is a marginal oil field, so there may not be that much of a hit on our production coming out of Escavos, which is where this is located. But still, I think the main issue here is it's another major incident in Nigeria's oil and gas region, and we hope there's no casualties. So we'll keep our eyes on that. Another thing I really wanted to focus on today is Nigeria's investment attractiveness. Just got word that in Thailand, if we move over to Thailand now, you should see. If we move over to Thailand now, Thailand's government pension fund is looking to invest about $33 billion, or rather, excuse me, a portion of their investment from their government pension fund in emerging markets. Dr. Shrikanya Yaptip is the Secretary General for Thailand's government pension fund. The fund, again, is a $33 billion fund. They pointed out that they are looking at China and India in order to invest their funds there. Why? Because of semiconductor production activity in China and also IT firms in India. So the thing is, if you look at it in Nigeria, why isn't Nigeria on the radar of the government pension fund from Thailand? Now, this fund, this government pension fund, I need to point this out. It is, the pension funds it manages are for 1.2 million government workers. This is not the full workforce for Thailand. This is just government workers, and it's a $33 billion fund. Nigeria's entire pension portfolio is roughly about the same, and that's I think we're about 13 trillion as of October 2021, and that's for about 9 million registered RSAs, retirement savings accounts. So one single government fund for just 1 million people is the equivalent of an entire country's, pension portfolio. And we just had their returns a few minutes ago. This is another thing when we talk about reforms in the pension sector. If we look at their returns from 2012 to 2021. We just had that a few minutes ago. There was okay, so look at this. The reason why they're deciding to do this, if you just look at the far end of the screen, 3.3% was their return for 2021 as at the end of September. Now, inflation in Thailand as of December 2021 was 2.7%. So they're still ahead of inflation here. But it's because their returns have dropped. They were like, we need to look at other countries in order to increase our returns. We've talked about pension reform in this country, in Nigeria. Pension reform, it goes back to the Obasanjo administration. Telco reform goes back to the Obasanjo administration. You keep having to go so far in the past in order to look at reforms in Nigeria. So for Nigeria's pension returns, we did about 6.4% last year. Now, inflation here is in double digits, so you're already in the negative region. We've had on the Global Business Reports executives from pension companies where everyone pretty much says that as far as investment is concerned and increasing Nigeria's pension returns, something needs to happen because in dollar terms, Nigeria's pension returns have been declining, right? If you look at depreciation of the naira. So the key thing here is, and you were just talking about PDP saying that the presidential aspirants are open to everyone. Every presidential aspirant, the question needs to be posed to them. What are you doing to improve Nigeria's investment attractiveness to where a fund overseas looks around and says, where are we going to put our money to get an investment return? It's going to be in this country. And look, our capital importation for Q3 2021, that is the capital inflows that came into Nigeria, I think it was about $1.7 billion in the third quarter of 2021. It was about $875 million in the second quarter of 2021. That's the most recent data. But it is so small. I didn't want to add too many details here, but if you go to Thailand's, their breakdown, right, they show you exactly where their fund allocation is. And they're also investing in foreign real estate. And another thing, 13% of Thailand's equity portfolio goes to foreign stocks. Another 25% goes to government securities. That's money markets, bonds, and so on. That's almost 38%. Their ceiling is 40%. Because their returns were declining, they went to the government and said, we need to increase their ceiling for foreign investment is 40%. They said we have to increase it to 60%. The finance ministry in Thailand is going to approve it this year. So they are moving very, very quickly in terms of what to do to get their returns. Also, Thailand's total foreign assets is about, if you allocate for Europe, US, all around the world, is $135 billion. This is a nation, this is the same Thailand, I think we have the screenshot of the website, whose rice exports was what Nigeria depended upon to get the data that our rice production had improved. We needed to get the data from their Rice Exporters Association to tell us that we had improved. Just yesterday, we were talking about Timmy Silva complaining about lack of data for fuel consumption. We're talking about lack of data for... So you know, the whole point of this is, look, you must find a way to improve your investment attractiveness when money around that is, there's trillions of dollars of investment dollars around the world that is looking for where to place itself. And Nigeria has to be part of that conversation.
That is such an excellent breakdown of the situation in Thailand and real food for thought. Yes, you're completely right. Their domestic markets are not serving their needs. They're looking elsewhere, but they're not looking here. Why not? That is the question. Yeah. And also, you're right about the responsiveness of their cabinet raising the ceiling from 40% to 60% for foreign assets, rather than just sitting around twiddling your thumbs. You know, there's thinking, there's action going on, and it's great to see. About the FPSO fire, fingers crossed. I mean, that statement that was released causes a bit of worry on one hand, because really what happened, what caused this explosion? It's happened before in Brazil, where that was caused by a gas leak, poor procedure, poor training. That resulted in 9 deaths and 26 injuries. That was in 2015. But since then, it was said that there was a report, there was an investigation, and industry standards have improved. Was there like some kind of failing with compliance? What happened here? Right. So many questions.
And we hope those questions you've asked will be answered quickly. Yeah. Because
okay. Let me start with pension and the example of Thailand that you have given and what the Thais are doing and why in trying to reach out they are not even looking at the Nigerian environment. My major reference in this regard will be a piece that I once read titled The Infamy of Pension Fund Administration in Nigeria. In 2004, you are correct, it was under the Obasanjo administration. Nigeria came up with what is called the Pension Reform Act, the PRA, and it has many sections. Under that particular act, after the work that had been done by the Fola Adeola Committee, I hope I'm correct. Yeah, I think it was Mr. Fola Adeola who was, the leader of that process. And this was supposed to be, a contributory pension scheme involving also employers of labor and also government. But we have not, done very well with that particular regime that was introduced in Nigeria. And that's why a scholar can come up and talk about the infamy, the failure to look at the provisions, the failure also, to make sure that there is strong integrity. Now, employers of labor that renege on sending remittances into the fund or putting a structure in place, nobody has ever sanctioned anybody. 2, there's lack of public enlightenment with regard to pension fund administration in Nigeria. 3, the pensioner in Nigeria is looked upon as, some kind of waste material. Because, you are supposed to save from your wages, to save for the raining day, to provide for your future. But it doesn't, that process has not really been done very well. So technology that we have been told will be used, to process, to deepen the process, that has not also been applied. And then on top of it all, there have been allegations of corruption with regard to pension fund administration in Nigeria. So why should you be surprised that, the Thais trying to invest abroad will not look in this direction? Our own laws, the Pension Reform Act of 2004, also makes provisions for some of those things that have been done by Thailand. But, here, nobody is following through. And that's the unfortunate part of it. Now, to go to the floating production, storage, and offtake vessel, where we have had a blowout in the western wing, in Escravos, in western Niger Delta. Now, this should remind us again of what happened in the Santa Barbara River with the wellhead belonging to Aitio. Now, and there are similarities. The wellhead on the Santa Barbara River, we were told was a facility that had been abandoned, no activity there. And then you had that, okay, they didn't use blowout at that time, they used flow out, okay? But even with very devastating consequences. In this particular case also, the third owners of the facilities, as we're told, because there's some argument about whether it belongs to Chevron or belongs to, is it Cephal? You call the
Shiba Exploration.
Shiba SFPO, whether it belongs to that third part. But the thing is that this is a 50-year-old facility that nobody has been paying attention to. And then you have this blowout. The implications are as obvious as they were in the Santa Barbara River Aitio case. And they are as follows. Pollution. 2, devastation of the environment and the ecosystem. Yep. And we're told that the cleanup usually takes a very long time. Now, the neighboring communities are concerned that, in fact, lives may have been lost. Many of these lives, persons who are within the community. This happened at midnight. I don't think as we sit here, we have any report as to any either rescue effort or intervention effort by the relevant departments of government.
No.
In the Santa Barbara River case, it went on for more than 1 month.
1 month.
In fact, nobody got to know about it until after 1 month.
And we put the pressure.
I hope this one.
Exactly.
I hope this one is not going to take up to 2 months.
Right.
With relevant government officials playing possum and being negligent.
This happened 3 days ago.
Yes.
So for 3 days
And
now.
we don't know
Right.
So the issue we're
Thank you,
talking
members.
about is, negligence on the part of the relevant departments of government. And sometimes you wonder, who are the people in charge of these government departments? And then again, penalties. Because the petroleum regulation guidelines, they are mostly antediluvian. They amount to a slap on the wrist. Even the Petroleum Act, we still need to look at it. That's the original act, But here we are. We have this impunity. We have this negligence with very serious consequences for the people in the affected communities. I hope that we'll continue to amplify this so that we do not have the same situation that we had with the Aitio case on the Santa Barbara River.
Indeed.
I just hope nobody died by
Exactly.
some miracle.
It'll
No
be a miracle
fatalities.
if there is no fatalities. We'll see. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Wilson.
very much,
Thank you.
Ruth.
Thank you.
Moving on to more business update. Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Good morning. As you'd expect, a very mixed day once again as far as Asia Pacific stocks are concerned. All the usual worries about this, inflation, geopolitical problems and so on. But of course the big number really is tomorrow's non-farm payrolls figure from the United States, which tends to tell us all we need to know, or a lot that we need to know about the world's biggest economy and how it's actually faring. So Nikkei not doing too badly. In Australia, the ASX 200 trimmed earlier losses to trade down. But basically, not much happening as far as Asia Pacific is concerned, because the major markets are still on holiday for their Lunar Day holiday, which is extending into, as we know, into February. So we're talking basically about China, mainland and Hong Kong shut. And Thursday's session really just followed a bit of an overnight surge on Wall Street, which I'll come on to now. So basically it was all about Facebook yesterday, or Meta as it's now called. That took tech shares and also, because that's social media really, but also tech shares down as well. And US stock futures are falling overnight. Futures tied to the Nasdaq 100 drop overnight 2.3%. S&P 500 futures down again. The Dow itself jumped more than 200 points. So it's a crazy and and volatile environment. And as I'm saying, basically, it's we'll get a bit of certainty when we get the US jobs figures tomorrow. Tomorrow at round about 1300 GMT. Now, Facebook shares down 20%. Earnings came in below expectations for the fourth quarter, and there are numerous challenges, as they're putting it, for ahead. Revenue will be between 27 and 29 billion, and that's less than the 30 billion that analysts had actually hoped for. And also shares of social network operators like Pinterest, Snap, and Twitter all declined on extended training last night as a result of that. PayPal shares also down 24%. Its worst ever trading day. PayPal's blaming inflation for this. I'm guessing what it means is that yes, there are inflationary pressures, but also pressures on household spending are actually increasing because of rising inflation, and it's missed its growth targets. In part to what it described as 4.5 million illegitimate accounts that joined the platform. Again, we will get details of that. Qualcomm, by contrast, beat its forecasts, expectations, sales up 30%. Qualcomm being a manufacturer of semiconductor software and services related to wireless technology. So it's actually doing quite well. That's in contrast to most of those stocks we've been talking about. Now, EU inflation rate yesterday, as we were on air, coming off air really, and then moving into the middle of the day, it was announced a record 5.1% in January, energy and food costs, and that gives the ECB, when it meets today, and we get the results around about 1 o'clock this afternoon GMT. big question marks really about whether they will raise interest rates. All the indications are that they won't, and they will continue, but Christine Lagarde's been talking about the US being behind the curve. Where is the ECB in all this? And also, it won't be very happily in the Baltic states, for example, where some of the CPI is already over 10%. So, in other words, here you have writ large the wisdom or not of having lots of different economies at lots of different stages in their development being run by one central bank. Does that make sense? I leave that to you. As far as the UK is concerned, though, we get a Bank of England, it's absolutely bet on 100% there will be an interest rate rise. How often have we been wrong about this? Up by 25 basis points but the total will be 0.5% interest rates. If it doesn't do that, it will have been seen to have lost credibility because it has been no doubt behind the curve. However, it's a big day for the cost of living today and inflation, because also what's going to happen is, as well as the Bank of England making their announcement, there is also the Treasury and the Bank of England joining together to try to reduce energy bills for consumers, because we're going to get the news of what cap is actually put on, and reckon it'll be quite high on what energy companies can actually charge their consumers. So this whole bundle of inflationary measures, numbers, and also maybe some marginal solutions for this coming out today. So a busy day as far as that's concerned. Oil, really, we knew we were in for a wild ride. We've had OPEC plus. We noticed that they will actually decide if they want to meet again at any time to control what's going on, and also a bit of a drawdown in the United States as well. So all that really, a huge ride for oil. It'll be the same today. That real target now of $100 a barrel, with all that implies, and there's ups and downs as far as that's concerned, we seem to be heading closer to that. That's the global view.
Okay, thank you, Michael Olsen. Let's start with Meta, or Facebook. Facebook losing viewers. If you look at it, the difference between 1.929 million and 1.9300 million, it may look like it's not much. But in terms of drop in shares value, that's about, we're told, up to about $200 billion or so, or is it $200 billion, which means a lot. And then also in the on a monthly basis, there has been no growth from the last quarter to the moment. So Metaverse and Facebook really look like they are in trouble. And Metaverse is quoting competition from TikTok and Pinterest and YouTube, attracting younger persons. But even beyond that, the problems in Australia, we seem not to have ended with Andrew Forrest, the iron ore magnate and Australian billionaire, taking Facebook to a court, to a magistrate court, to say that, look, it's being used for scams and for money laundering and for tarnishing his image being used to promote cryptocurrencies. So ask, is this the beginning of the end for, this particular institution? Would this lead to other problems? Or do you think that it's still possible for Mark Zuckerberg, to rescue the situation? Maybe perhaps buying up TikTok or something like that. That's one. The second one is something of industry interest, and it's also business. Jeff Zucker, the head of CNN, resigning. Is this Cuomo's revenge moment? Will you say that Jeff Zucker was pushed, or that he jumped, or it was his conscience that pricked him? And he's leaving. He says he has resigned. But Alison Gollist, the woman, is saying she's going nowhere. So what is this all about in terms of business for CNN? And former President Donald Trump putting his mouth quickly into the matter to say that, well, this is nemesis for the fake news channel, as he calls CNN. I just wanted you to comment on all of this because it falls within our industry.
CNN, what do you do? I think it's wise actually to move away from controversy if you're heading a news organisation, and he's done exactly that. It's a news organisation. I'm not sure it's a fake news organisation. It's something which has grown on subscription channels, and it seems to me a good business model. I remember when it first started, and we used to laugh at it because it was so small, and this is when we were all working at Sky, which was not even a centimetre, a hundredth of the size of CNN. So I think, I just think it's the way executives go now. You don't want any stain on your corporate copybook, and if there is a problem about it, much better just to stand aside. As far as Donald Trump's concerned, I've got no comment about him whatsoever. As far as the other point, the social media point, I think, you've rightly observed. You've touched all the corners, I think, in your question about this. I mean, what we're seeing here, I don't think it's the end of Facebook, and it's the end of metaverse and so on. There's a number of factors here. Number one is that there are huge expectations still of these kind of social media sites, and if they just if they just kiss the pink, as it were, of these things, it seems to be a disaster. I don't think it is. I think what is interesting is the way that these social media sites, because of the content on them, whether they are actually governing it or not, are going to have to grow up. And the fact of the matter about growing up is you have to realize that if you are carrying information, some of it will be false, some of it may be used to channel illicit funds. Who knows? Maybe there's coded signals, maybe spies are working there. I just do not know. But this is, Facebook, which sounds like great fun for kids and all the rest of it, to say, hey, this is what I ate today, this is what I'm doing. It's having to grow up. It's having to grow up considerably and take notes. So we've got that, and they're also going to be under extreme pressure, as they are in Australia, but most certainly in the United States, because they're growing so big. So there you are. It's Facebook growing up, growing pains, lots of them. That's what you get when you're a large company.
Well, thank you very much, Michael Olsen. We look forward to seeing you again tomorrow morning.
One update on the COVID-19 pandemic. Adeswa Amora is here with us. Good morning, Adeswa.
Good morning, Tundu. Good morning, Dr. Abati. It's great to be here again. Well, step by step, many countries are now easing their COVID-19 restrictions. But the early moves to relax precaution is what the WHO is warning against, as cases and deaths are rising in many countries around the world. In its latest weekly breakdown of the pandemic, the WHO says reported new cases worldwide from January 24th to January 30th were similar to the level of previous week, with over 22 million new infections reported in that space of time. But The number of new deaths, according to WHO, increased by 9%. You have the Johns Hopkins University tally on your screen, and just look at those numbers there at the top of your screen. In the last week, 59,000 people died from coronavirus from across the world. And out of the 6 regions the WHO categorizes the world to, Southeast Asia, Eastern Mediterranean, the Americas also increase in deaths. European and Western Pacific reported similar numbers from the previous week, and only Africa reported a decrease in deaths at 7%. On country basis, the US reported the highest number of deaths, followed by India, Russia, Brazil, and Italy. Well, here in Nigeria, it's like a yo-yo movement. 65 new cases were reported in the last 24 hours with no COVID-19 related deaths. That's down from the 159 cases reported a day earlier. Well, 6 states were responsible, 6 states as well as the FCT were responsible for this latest data of 65 new cases from across the country. And in its latest data release, the vaccination agency in Nigeria says 120,000 Nigerians received the first dose of a COVID-19 vaccine from the 36 states and the FCT, while almost 93,000 others showed up for their second jab. In the U.S., the Army says soldiers who refuse to get a COVID-19 vaccine will be immediately discharged. In a statement yesterday, the U.S. Army says the move was critical to maintain combat readiness. Well, the order applies to regular Army soldiers, active duty Army reservists, and cadets, unless they have approved or pending exemptions. The Pentagon, you recall, made vaccine mandatory for all service members in August last year. Meanwhile, in a letter to the Biden government, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the Aerospace Industry Association, the U.S. Travel Association, and other groups are urgently asking a change to the COVID-19 travel testing rules for vaccinated international travelers. The request comes at a day and at a time where the daily numbers of COVID-19 related deaths in the U.S. is at its highest in almost a year. Should that request be granted, the U.S. will not be the first to make such move. We recall that in the U.K., fully vaccinated travelers can now travel without a pre-departure test. And in India, health workers are alleging that due to the unprecedented pressure to increase the number of vaccinated people or persons against COVID-19 and to meet the government's targets, people are being officially registered as double vaccinated without receiving both doses. Well, the Indian government has denied that any vaccine fraud is taking place. And to New Zealand, very quickly, guys, where the country is in strict border restrictions imposed nearly 2 years ago in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, in this phase reopening, Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister, says vaccinated New Zealanders in Australia will be allowed to come back home without quarantine from the end of this month. Citizens returning from the rest of the world can come back from mid-March, and all travel restrictions will end in October this year. About 93% of people in New Zealand are thought and are said to be fully vaccinated. So far, only 53 people have died from coronavirus in New Zealand. Back to you guys.
Well, I suppose I understand the sort of reluctance on the part of American authorities so far to follow the line that's been told by others and, stop that requirement for tests, because they are still grappling with around 3,000 COVID deaths a day. And I'm going to share something I was reading from this doctor called Dr. Jorge Rodriguez, and he was talking about how we had the story yesterday I did about Denmark and parts of Europe in this huge hurry to go back to normal. And he was talking about how the 3,000 COVID deaths a day is the equivalent of maybe 10 airplanes, full airplanes crashing every day. And if that was happening, everybody would be so scared to fly, action would be taken, and everybody is watching 10 airplanes crashing and killing everybody on board and saying, well, let's still go back to normal. He found it really bizarre that that's the thinking. But I guess everybody is just really tired of COVID. The issue is it is not tired of us, which is why, as I've observed before, there's a lack of patience now with people refusing to be vaccinated. They are facing sanctions in the workplace, like you've just said about the soldiers, and that makes sense to me, especially because the vast majority, we're talking about upwards of 95% of the US military has been vaccinated. So this little minority is no longer being tolerated. And I guess it's continuing that trend. As for India, good heavens, the corruption. Apparently what's underpinning it is just the government wanting to boast about their vaccine uptake and, boast about 70% of their adult population being vaccinated and what have you. So they're blatantly lying, such that even people who have died are being reported as having been vaccinated. So the lies, the corruption is just so obvious. But what is so sad about it is that all of that just feeds into the general distrust around this COVID issue, the distrust of government, the distrust of data. So I do wish people would stop with these shenanigans, truly.
Okay, the U.S. Army. I think the U.S. Army is just following in the footsteps of the vaccine mandate that was read out by the Joe Biden administration, particularly with federal workers and persons who have access to federal facilities. You'll recall when the U.S. Supreme Court gave a ruling on vaccine mandate, it was with regard to companies that have 100 or more staff, saying that every worker should be mandated, and the Supreme Court, didn't rule in the favor of the federal government in that regard. Now, in the U.S. Army, 96% of the U.S. Army, in terms of personnel, are vaccinated. The problematic people are just about 3,350. And the U.S. Army is threatening that if you don't take the jab, because as a soldier, you have to be ready. And if you are not ready, you are going to compromise the integrity of the entire armed forces. And it will be wiser to just turn you adrift. And already, about six major general officers, including 2 battalion commanders, have been relieved of their duties. 3,053 have been given queries. They've been given reprimands. So this is the situation within the U.S. Army, just following federal guidelines with regard to a vaccine mandate and saying that the integrity of the Army cannot be compromised. Now, as for Airlines for America and the 28 other travel and tourism companies that are saying do not insist that persons traveling to the U.S. should take the COVID vaccine as a precondition. Well, they are just following in the footsteps of what has happened in the United Kingdom, where you recall that test will not be necessary if you have already been doubly vaccinated. And the whole idea is just business. It's business consideration to open up the travel and tourism industry, which had been heavily negatively impacted by the COVID pandemic. But it is now left for the advisor, the coronavirus advisor in the White House, to advise the government and for the government to take a decision one way or the other. But it is true, of course, that many countries are lifting restrictions. Denmark says that COVID-19 is no longer a socially critical disease. That's the phrase that the health authorities use. And then this morning, we woke up to the news that New Zealand is also introducing a 5-stage plan. It's in 5 phases. You have described 2 of the phases. The third is that perhaps by October 30, New Zealand will open up to the rest of the world. The argument that should be noted, of course, is that New Zealand introduced one of the most stringent conditions, the strongest form of lockdowns in the face of this pandemic. And Jacinta Ardern has been specially praised for the effort that she has made in ensuring that up to about 93% of the population in New Zealand, are doubly vaccinated, and that the death rate is very low compared to the population. Yes, in India, the problem in India is that India runs, an underfunded, overpressurized healthcare system. And the government at the center has set targets. Health officials at other levels have set targets for health officials. So these health officials, they just play up the numbers in order to be able to meet the targets, because they are also faced with the threat of being relieved of their duties if they don't, go quick with the vaccination rate. That in itself is the problem. And many of these workers, they give the excuse of technical glitches, but it has been found that it's not about technical glitches. because persons have also received messages of their dead relatives receiving vaccination. And there are persons who have threatened to go to court in India. That how can their mother that died in December receive a vaccination in January? So this the management of COVID pandemic throws up all kinds of contradictions in many countries. And we've always talked about, yes, it's an emergency, but the basic issues will be transparency and accountability. Will also be about trust, and that is what India confronts you with regard to those key issues with COVID and corruption. Thank you, Adesua.